It's February 17th, a big day for the convoy, because today in Parliament, Justin Trudeau and the opposition parties are going to be debating whether or not to officially enact the Emergencies Act, which used to be known as the War Measures Act in Canada. Basically, martial law, where they can suspend civil liberties to combat serious situations. And that debate is happening today. I'm not sure what's going on with it, and everything could change by the time I'm done recording this video, so keep that in mind. Today I'm going to be covering these topics: the government response to the convoy, the two distinct groups that I think exist in this whole movement, some danger signs that I'm seeing arise, the shady double talk, origin stories, character relationships, and secret deals that have gone on, the hack of Give, Send, Go, and a little bit about the hacker. I'm going to show you some connections to the US and beyond. I'm going to talk a little bit about the banks and crypto, and wrap up with how it plays into the Great Reset, World Economic Forum agenda. And also, I want to give you some pep talk along the way, or at the end, maybe. Because one thing I don't want to happen is I don't want to put out the fire that exists in the hearts of so many Canadians right now, and so many people around the world. Because no matter what happens with truckers and farmers, we know now for sure, and this is real, there does exist a spark inside of millions upon millions of Canadians who are rooting for this movement to succeed. So should it fail, I want you to carry that spark forward, and I want you to be the heroes in your local areas. That's what we should be doing, and should have been doing all along anyway. Take off the masks. Take off the masks. Do it now. Start taking off your masks in public, because the masks are like an automatic visual aid for the government. It's like a poll, a real life 24/7 poll of the sentiment and the heart and the courage and the dedication to freedom of each and every Canadian citizen. So this movement wants you to support Canada and send the government a message. That's what they keep saying. And I'm saying you don't have to go to Ottawa or send any money anywhere. You can send the government a powerful message every day for free by simply taking off the masks and ditching your smartphone. But I won't get into that in this video. Okay, I don't want to waste much time. Let's go. We know Trudeau invoked the Emergency Act for the first time to aid in convoy blockade response on February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, Canada. Behind him is Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland. She is also the Minister of Finance right now. She's a former journalist married to a New York Times hack, and her family is very, very closely tied to George Soros and Ukrainian oligarch Viktor Pinchuk. Also, her grandfather was a reporter, editor, or something for a Nazi periodical. This is all true. Verifiable. So she took the stage right after Justin Trudeau, and she announced that they were giving banks sweeping powers to freeze funds without court orders. And she said this order covers both personal and corporate accounts. As I said, right now, they are debating this in the House of Commons. As my understanding is, it has to pass the House, and then it has to go to another level, to the Senate, and it has to pass there in order for them to implement this stuff. But we are hearing rumors that some people have had their bank accounts frozen already. Who knows if that's true? There is so much mis and disinformation right now, and misunderstandings, simple misunderstandings. Right, so that's the government response. Going on to Section 2. There's two distinct groups in this protest: Ottawa and the rest of the country. At least in my opinion, that's the case. So across Canada, we had many reports, are over 100 other blockades and convoys. Some lasted a long time, some only lasted a short time. And many of these had begun to disperse even prior to Trudeau's Emergency Act declaration. And this is important because part of the declaration was to deal with the frozen roadways and ports of entry and things like that. But many of them were already gone by the time he decided to overreact and invoke the Emergency Act, okay? They were dismantled voluntarily. There's even video on some cases of the police and the protesters hugging and getting along and all of this. Now, in Coutts, Alberta, they were going to hang on longer, but then the RCMP got up to some serious shenanigans with them, and they did also decide voluntarily to pack it up and leave. As of February 16th, yesterday, all protests across Canada had peacefully disengaged. There were no more blockades anywhere. The Ottawa Convoy is different. It's not a blockade, and it's not on any of these major roadways, so they have decided to stay in place. And I'm going to say within Ottawa, there appear to be different factions who go out and speak to the press and give press conferences and that. They do all seem to be united in pleading for more people to join and go down to Ottawa to be there for this moment, this important moment. They're all saying that in spite of the Emergency Act declaration, in their opinion, it should be fine and legal for you to do so. They argue that this is the best way to send a message to the elected members that we want our freedoms back. In all these press briefings that I've seen and the lawyers that I've seen address this, none of them talked about the Ontario state of emergency that was declared. This is all about the Federal Emergencies Act being declared. And they all say, look, this isn't legal advice, weigh it out, but in our interpretation of what's happening with the Trudeau Act, is that he has no grounds to do anything. But they also warn, of course, that this government is known for overreach. It's known to be a bit lawless, so you're taking your chances. Now, I want to say, based on the stuff I'm going to present to you now and the stuff I presented in my Warning to Truckers video, that I think that the Ottawa protest is now almost fully stage managed. I say almost fully because many of the people that are involved down there, I believe, are completely genuine. They are organic. They did move into Ottawa for this protest organically. They were inspired to do so, and they did so. So many of the people involved are completely genuine, and that, in my opinion, includes truckers and supporters. I'm not so sure about the ones who get the microphones. I think some of them are genuine as well. They may be being handled, though, without their knowledge. This is being managed, in my opinion, by players behind the scenes who we still have yet to discover. And I think that things like the moving of all the trucks out of the outlying areas down to Wellington in front of Parliament is part of that stage management. It is easier, first of all, to kettle the protesters if they're all in one spot. And it's also easier if you're planning to make this a big media show, either for good or bad. It's easier to have everybody concentrated in one place, isn't it? And I've heard, as of this morning, they've put fences up all around this area. I'm just saying, in my opinion, that's danger, Will Robinson. That, to me, it's dangerous. All right? Now, one of the factions that's down there, of course, is the official spokespeople for the Freedom Convoy 2022 fundraising campaigns, as we talked about in my last video, and that is Tamara Lich and BJ Dichter. To confirm, they didn't have anything to do with the protests and the blockades elsewhere in the country. They have said this numerous times, and here it is on their Give, Send, Go update from February 12th. They're only talking about Ottawa. It's only Ottawa. Last night, they did a press conference, this group, and they set their list of demands at 7. End vax mandates, cancel local vax mandates, end state of emergencies, give people their jobs back, give kids back to their parents. They have actually enacted certain judgments now that parents who are unvaxxed can't see their children. This has happened. They want more small business report, and they want their freedom of choice respected. Everybody's freedom of choice respected. That was just put out last night, along with a call for people to come down to Ottawa. After that press conference later in the evening, Tamara Lich put out her own video on Facebook where she got teary-eyed and she was saying she's so proud of everybody. She says she expects to end up in jail today. That's what she said. And she also said quite a bizarre thing in the middle about Justin Trudeau and how we have to handle this with love. And even though everybody's running around saying F Trudeau, remember, he's got 3 little kids. This is what she said. We should pray for him. And we have to handle this with love. The rest of the video was very nice. Very supportive of her fellow Canadians. Very thankful for what everybody had come and done. She said, it's been a wild ride. And she didn't expect the response. It was only that part about Trudeau that it just stuck out for me. All right, next. This press conference, which was February 16th, with characters that I haven't seen before. They all seem to be representing different organizations. It was actually hosted by a woman who's not pictured here, who I know has been pictured with the rest of the official Convoy group in the past. This man, Roy, says he's from the organization called Taking Back Our Freedoms. He says he's the executive director. He was encouraging people to come down there. He's the one that said that the council, Keith Wilson, assured everybody that it would be fine and there's no legal basis to stay away. There's a heavy emphasis, as I said, by all of these people that going to Ottawa sends the politicians a clear message. And I'm going to reiterate, I think you can send an even clearer message with far less risk to yourself by realizing how much support you have across the country and simply refusing to wear your masks, refusing that stuff. Now I want to go through the danger signs that I see. We have some narrative seeding happening. On February 13th, they put this out. Truck carrying more than 2,000 firearms reported stolen in Peterborough. Peterborough it's sort of in the center of Ontario, in between maybe some of the other blockade protests and Ottawa. So how convenient to seed the narrative with this idea that someone has stolen a truck with 2,000 guns in it. I haven't heard the major media ask, why was there a parked truck with 2,000 guns in it? Like, what are we talking about here? And at last we heard, nobody had found who done it. They did find the truck, and they're refusing to say whether or not all the guns were recovered. What does that do? That leaves out there the possibility that this could be brought into play in the Ottawa area. It can't be brought into play anymore at any of the other blockades because they're all gone. Those guys were much smarter. They're gone. And then second story we have seeding the narrative is this one from February 15th. The threat was very serious. RCMP provide an update on the Coutts arrest after blockade ends. This was a cache of weapons right here. They say they arrested 13 people. They say one man was arrested en route to the protest site in Coutts, Alberta. And then in a second incident, a semi-truck approached an RCMP check stop north of Milk River, Alberta, which is right near Coutts. The RCMP officer said the driver sped up and drove toward police, but then swerved at the last minute and hit some traffic cones. And apparently, all these weapons and ammunition were seized in that incident. The Coutts people, after that happened, probably got the message that they were being set up because it wasn't the first thing that had happened. The day before, the RCMP had approached the Coutts blockade and asked if they could move 3 of the very large pieces of equipment that were on the side of the road. The Coutts guys decided to do it, and the RCMP said they had a farmer's field set up where they could move them to. The Coutts guys moved them to, and then when they got up in the morning, they had been sabotaged in a highly sophisticated way. Someone would have had to know which parts of the truck to break. Okay? So the Coutts guys were going to hang on even after Justin Trudeau said he was going to invoke the Emergencies Act. They held on after the first sabotage, but then it just kept getting ramped up. Look, this is my opinion. I don't know people there. I don't have an inside story, but looking at it from the outside, I would say they calculated their risk and they did a strategic retreat. This is a part of war. You don't just cut your own throat by fighting a battle that it looks like you're about to lose. So they have removed themselves from the Coutts border. It was announced yesterday by the mayor of Coutts that those guns and those people, those 13 people that they arrested, had nothing to do with the protests. So they shaded the narrative for the public. They held this kind of over the heads of the protesters in Coutts that it might come back and bite them in the butt. But they've since cleared that all up. But how many in the public are going to see it? They're going to remember the picture of the guns. They're going to remember the story of the 13 arrests. They're going to remember that the media linked it to the blockades. So there you go, the power of the media. So we can see the difference between the two sides. The Ottawa side is still going. The other blockades are done. Now I've got to point something out. As all these lawyers and that are assuring people, and the protest organizers are assuring people that they don't think that there's any real basis for the federal government to move on them, based on the fact that it doesn't really meet any of the criteria laid out for why they can use the Emergencies Act. I have to point something out that I noticed a little while ago and thought was really odd. It's from the update section of the Give, Send, Go page by BJ Dichter and Tamara Lich. Look what it says on the update of February 11th. It says, here are some examples of what we believe the donors endorse as a proper use of their funds to support the protesters. Normal things at first, and then all of a sudden, permanent infrastructure for continuing advocacy in whatever form that takes, office staff and personnel to permanently support them. Now, they may mean for lawsuits and all of that, but how would a corrupt government interpret that? This is my concern. How would a crazy person like Diane Deans, who, if you heard any of the Zoom calls featuring Diane Deans, she does come off as completely psycho. She's so uncharitable. She's so angry. She's so determined to get her way. She did get booted off the Police Services Board, by the way, in a vote of 15-9 yesterday. So that's good. But there's lots of people like Diane Deans, and how might they look at this? Permanent infrastructure for continuing advocacy in whatever form that takes. So when certain people say occupying force, illegal occupation, and they see them building huts, I mean, they have built huts. They've built stages. They've put in hot tubs. They've put in their bouncy castles, famously, which are lovely and everything. They're lovely. I can see how both sides are looking at this, though. I worry about those two bullet points when it comes to the Emergencies Act and how they might uncharitably interpret it. And that would then go for anybody who sent funding, because it specifically says, here are some examples of what we believe the donors endorse as a proper use of funds. I don't know. I'm just pointing it out. All right, next section. The shady double talk, origin stories, character relationships, and secret deals that I've noticed. There's probably tons more here, but I'm just going to try to whirlwind tour through this. Something that happened right after my last video warning to truckers. This letter made the rounds, and it is two letters between Tamara Lich and Jim Watson, the mayor of Ottawa. So this is Tamara writing to Jim. We have made a plan to consolidate our protest efforts around Parliament Hill. We will be working hard over the next 24 hours to get buy-in from the truckers. We hope to start repositioning our trucks on Monday. So boom, everyone all of a sudden finds out that Tamara Lich had gone into a meeting face-to-face meeting with Jim Watson and negotiated on behalf of everybody. And things kind of blew up then, because it was a question of, does Tamara even have the authority to do this? Or did she tell anybody that she was doing this? So she's actually now agreed to reposition the trucks, to acquiesce to the demands of the Ottawa police or the Ottawa mayor. People were very upset about that. Okay, and then what happened was Tamara and BJ came out and implied through a couple of tweets that the letter was fake, that it was fake news. The media lies to their viewers. No deal has been made, says Tamara at 8:27 p.m. on February 13th. And BJ says the same thing. More fake news. No deal has been struck. 8:24 February 13th. So someone who's very involved down there on the street, called Alex, his screen name is Transplendor, he says to Tamara, is your letter to Mayor Watson a fake? If you could join me on Twitter Spaces at 9:30, you could allay many justified concerns. Let me know. Lots of questions. All due respect, but Watson's letter was art of the deal, and your response seemed art of the capitulation. The reason this is so important is because this agreement and the moving of the trucks that happened afterwards is like Tamara working with the mayor and possibly the police to voluntarily kettle the protesters. That's a classic law enforcement tactic, and Tamara apparently bought right in and helped them out in secret without telling anybody. All right? And then they came out and they said, no, that never happened. It's fake news. But BJ Dichter did go on a Twitter Spaces it's sort of like a big giant Zoom call later that night, and he answered some questions. And I want you to hear a little chunk of it. It's pretty short.
Yeah, and I also, just on that, Tamara didn't go, what I do know, she didn't go into any negotiations on her own. She had a team of lawyers with her. I wasn't there. And that's who ended up drafting that. And I will admit, horrible letter. I don't like the wording on it as well. It ceded so much ground. It's something that I said to Glenn Beck, we do this all the time on the right, and we have to stop doing this. We keep allowing.
You heard him himself. He admitted it. So, in my opinion, we could just draw a line right now under BJ Dichter and say he's he's conniving, he's dishonest, and we shouldn't trust him. I gave you some evidence of that in my last video, warning to the truckers, but there's a little bit more. Okay, so I did my warning to the truckers video on February 11th. February 12th, that letter dropped, and then all the controversy surrounding that happened. So what was the next move? Well, BJ, I guess, knew he had to do some damage control. So what he did was he did a whole series of interviews with, I would call them friendly people. One was with Viva Frey on the morning of February 14th, right away, where Viva asks him softball questions for the most part. Then he did one with Jordan Peterson on February 15th. And he did one with Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela Peterson, on February 15th. Like I said, they were softball questions, but in the Viva Frey interview, I actually learned something really interesting, which I'll talk about in a minute. But first of all, I want to bring you back to almost the beginning of this, when BJ had gone on Tucker Carlson and told the origin story of this movement. I think a day or two later, maybe a little while later, he went on Dave Rubin's show, because Dave Rubin was going to set BJ up with another fundraising platform on Dave Rubin's own locals.com. BJ goes on Dave Rubin, and he tells his origin story all over again. This is how BJ scared everybody. He scared me. I believed him at the time, and I thought, whoa, that's really creepy. And Tucker thought, whoa, that's horrible. And so the movement kind of blew up in U.S. media at that point. So on Dave Rubin's show on February 4th, BJ tells the same story over again, but he adds a little something, which I find very interesting. Listen.
The other thing is the passports. Is I think you saw when I was on Tucker, I explained that these passports, according to the agent in the booth, and I don't think he was lying to me. Maybe he was, but I don't think so. He said to me when I went to show him my barcode, he said, it's okay, I don't need to see it because you just pop up on the screen. So there's some sort of radius that they detect all the phones that have a COVID passport on it. And yesterday,
he says, I don't know, maybe the border guard was lying to me. He might have been. I don't think he was. That to me gives him an out in case it is ever discovered that that story is untrue. He can say, oh, I didn't lie. I guess the border guard lied. Do you see?
These passports, according to the agent in the booth, and I don't think he was lying to me. Maybe he was, but I don't think so.
Now, I want to put this hypothesis out there, and this is just a hypothesis, all right? The border guard story is pivotal to the support for the movement, particularly from the US, because that's when major media started covering this whole story and having BJ on a whole bunch of interviews. Now, imagine if that whole border guard story were false, were proven false. This would destroy BJ. Do you see what I'm saying? Oh, he's going to hate me for this. I'm just asking questions. Yes, I have a little bit more that goes to the shady character associations here that I just question. In this February 14th damage control interview that BJ did with Viva Frey, BJ promotes Tom Quiggin because he manages Tom Quiggin's podcast. BJ is a manager of several podcasters, I guess. He's named Stephen Hicks. He's named Tom Quiggin. I get the sense he might be the sponsor of Gad Sad because he talks about him a lot. I'm not sure of his relationship to Jordan Peterson, but all of a sudden those two are linked at the hip too for some reason. I don't understand it. I mean, you just saw father and daughter gave him interviews on the same day to promote, to smooth everything over. Okay, but the Tom Quiggin piece is interesting because Tom Quiggin apparently is the person who introduced BJ to Tamara Lich in the first place years ago. And then BJ says he only bought his truck, his big rig, and became a trucker during COVID, he says. See, when I look at that, and maybe I'm being too suspicious, I just see puzzle pieces being put into place. And sort of a tight-knit group of people. But that's not all. Check this out. BJ Dichter is organizing a fundraiser for Tom Quiggin's legal defense, and it's up to $42,000. Boom. What is going on here? It has been discovered by Matt the Unseated. This is where I got this piece of information. Nice work, brother. All right, I'm going on too long because there's way more. Boom. Tom Quiggin, last night, all of a sudden bowed out of this whole thing. So he's gone. All of a sudden, yesterday. Moving on to the next part. The hacks. There was a hack February 13th, 14th, or maybe just February 13th. It took the Give, Send, Go fundraiser offline for 2 days. Then on February 14th, it comes out that whoever hacked it got the names of 92,000 Freedom Convoy donors. And the press went wild. They were so excited to get and share this information on Twitter. And Twitter, in October 2020, specifically banned posting anything that comes from hacked emails or hacked computer systems. Nothing hacked. They banned it. And now Twitter is all over, letting the blue checks show all the personal information that was hacked from this Give, Send, Go leak. It's astounding. So let's have a quick look at this Vice article. Some of the donors didn't provide their names, such as the person behind the current top donation of $215,000, the vast majority did provide them, including American software billionaire Thomas Siebel, who donated $90,000 to the Freedom Convoy. The majority of donors come from the US, 56%. And isn't that right there interesting? Only 29% came from Canada. Amazing. There are thousands of donations from overseas, including UK, Australia, and Ireland. Despite over 15,000 more donations flooding in from the US, Canadian donors outraised Americans by almost 1 million, bringing in 4.3 million compared to 3.6 million. Also included in the leaked data were the messages that some donors posted alongside their donations. And listen to this. Messages contained over 13,000 references to God or Jesus. Why did they even find that interesting? Notice this trend? They hate people who love God. I mean, why would they mention it if that wasn't the case? There was an article out yesterday, and the headline said that Democrats made up the majority of the U.S. donors in the Freedom Convoy Give, Send, Go campaign. Amazing. I searched for that all morning today. I accidentally had deleted it from my machine. I had a screen grab of it. I deleted it, along with a bunch of other stuff. I can't find it now. If you can find it, post a link in the comment section. Look at this, though. Dagny Pollack, who was that Obama operative that was named all of a sudden out of nowhere as one of the official spokespeople of the Freedom Convoy, Dagny Pollack retweeted Ilhan Omar, who says about the hacked documents, "I fail to see why any journalist felt the need to report on a shop owner making such an insignificant donation rather than to get them harassed. It's unconscionable, and journalists need to do better." Okay, I don't understand but the rather than, but so Ilhan Omar supports the convoy? Or is she just all of a sudden really interested in good ethical behavior? I don't know. Just asking the question. And I have one more thing that makes me smile. They put out a map of the states that gave the most or the least amounts of money to the Freedom Convoy. Guess which state gave the most? Idaho. I can barely contain myself. Oh, okay. All right. What else? I think I have a little bit more about this. Okay, Canada's reaction to the leak of all these names was kind of spearheaded by this guy, Dean Blundell. I don't know anything about him, but if you go read his Twitter timeline, he is, I don't know what word to use, his heart is bitter. So he's the one that got the entire Give, Send, Go donor list, checked with his legal department, and he said his lawyer said, go ahead, release it. So he did, and then spent the next day being really gross about it. Next section, the hacker. Who was it that got into Give, Send, Go and disrupted it and got the list of names? It was this guy, Kurt Tanner. That's what he calls himself, Kurt Tanner. He has a real name, Aubrey something. I can't remember what it is. But here's the video he put out admitting it. I'm going to play just a little bit for you.
Nothing scares me. Nothing. Yes, I doxed the truckers. I did it. It was me. I hacked Give, Send, Go, baby. And I do it again.
Okay, like, it's disturbing, right? On the face of it, it's just he seems so disturbed, like Silence of the Lambs, villain level crazy, right? Okay, I'm laughing because I think this guy is just acting. He has a role to play on the world stage. That's his character. And so I Now, he could be really truly crazy, and actually probably is, but if you look at the rest of this video and you have it in your mind that this is a guy who normally just acts normal and dresses, he works for a spy agency or something like CSIS or who knows what in Canada, and they all sit around like normal people most of the time, but they're like, oh man, you got to go play your role of Cortana again on camera. That's what I'm looking at this video as. So with that viewpoint on it in mind, watch it. Watch for when it looks like he's almost going to bust out laughing. Just watch.
Nothing scares me. Nothing. Yes, I doxed the truckers. I did it. It was me. I hacked Give, Send, Go, baby. And I do it again. I do it 100 times. I did it. I did it. Come at me. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to me, huh? I hacked Epic Hosting! I hacked Parler! I hacked Gab! I hacked Truth Social! I hacked Go! Give, Send, Go! I don't care! You can literally put my name into the news tab on Google, and you can find everything I've done. I am literally in every mainstream media publication for the things that I do. I'm not an unknown actor. I'm literally a famous fucking cyber terrorist. And you think that you can scare me?
If you think of it as an act, it's so funny. Okay, I'm getting slap happy because this is getting so long. Next, yes, see, it is alleged that this guy Cortana is an intelligence asset, that they keep him, like, if you read just his Wikipedia, it admits how many hacks he's done to very big places, not just weird corners of the internet, like, I forget the companies, but he's hacked legit companies, and as far as I know, he's never been charged, and according to him, it's because he works for the FBI and CSIS, and he's founder of the group Anonymous. You know that group, Anonymous? And they need his skills so badly, he says, that he's never going to get in trouble for anything. That's the story, okay? I'm not saying it's true. That's the story. Now add that to this little thing. This is David Lametti, who is Canada's Justice Minister. And he says, if you're a Trump supporter, yeah, you could have some problems. He was talking about going after the donors to this Give, Send, Go. Why would he mention that? Like, it could just be another attempt, tie the whole Convoy supporters into another group that everyone hates, quote unquote, all the blue checks, all the liberals hate. But I suspect it is about these handlers, these outside influencers. And I think they come from both sides of this political spectrum, myself. But yeah, I think he's pointing to certain people, maybe his political enemies, when he says that. And so we're going to look at quickly connections to the US and beyond. First of all, this is that largest donor that they named, the $90,000 donation, but he's a technologist. He wrote Digital Transformation in 2019. He's talking about cloud computing, big data, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things. So this just could be oligarch versus oligarch vying for contracts after the fact. All right, I don't know if you heard, but the police chief called Peter Slowly in Ottawa, he resigned February 16th, all of a sudden. Now, Greg Reese on Band.video did a great short video you should watch called Trudeau Deploys Globalist Police Force Against Historic Peaceful Protests. He shows how Slowly was linked to the UN, Deloitte, the company Deloitte, and that Deloitte's one of Deloitte's owners is on the board of directors of Pfizer. And there's more links. He then points to funding flowing to the Wexit movement. If you recall, I told you Tamara Lich is part of the Wexit movement. It turns out, apparently, the Wexit movement is linked to the Atlantic Council through their funding source. It has a lot to do with NATO and the Ukraine. And then that brings us all the way back around to Chrystia Freeland and George Soros. And so, yeah, go watch that video on band.video, Greg Reese. Okay, this is the last section. The banks and crypto. I don't have much on this for you, but the reason I'm bringing it up is, remember they said they were going to freeze bank accounts in Canada if they found out you supported this convoy. All right? So the rumors flew immediately, even though the Emergency Act is not yet in place. Supposedly the guy from Druthers already had his bank account frozen. And then Ezra Levant from Rebel News claims that 3 of Canada's largest banks are offline. Who knows if any of that's even true, because my bank was fine. Granted, it's none of these ones. And then this person says CIBC is up. I just signed on and checked my account. Of course, there's this. The RCMP orders blacklist of 34 crypto wallets under Trudeau's authoritarian prerogative. Some people say this isn't even possible, and I can't confirm it whether it's happened or not. But interestingly, in that interview with Michaela Peterson, I believe it was, BJ Dichter admits that the original group of quote-unquote high-level Bitcoiners that he had hooked up with shut down the Tallycoin fundraiser that they started for the truckers after the Canadian government announcement. So the high-level Bitcoiners themselves, according to BJ Dichter, was like, whoa, and they shut down the fundraiser right away. What does that tell you, everybody, about crypto and the people pushing it? Finally, just a word on the World Economic Forum goals, the Great Reset, you'll own nothing and be happy, people. Is the convoy playing into that? So it's looking like the Ottawa part now is just completely stage managed. This is my opinion. Yes, lots of good, regular, unconnected, innocent people with hearts of gold are down there doing things. And I'm not even saying that a lot of the quote-unquote leaders know that it's being directed. I don't know, but I'm just saying. So how does this tie into the Great Reset? Not just the banking thing that we just saw. See, if they can destroy the credibility of banking and they can show how vulnerable they are to different things, then maybe Canadians will be more inclined to go towards this digital system, like on the blockchain, rather than in a normal bank. But I also see rumblings now of advertising for direct democracy. Like, why should these handful of elected politicians make our decisions when we can just vote right on our phones on the blockchain and it'll be totally secure? See, it's the same sales pitch really as the banking stuff, but this is applying to voting. And I say that's super dangerous, because then you've just got blue check mob rule. You see how it works now online? You see who gets their way? Apply that to every single facet of your lives. Not to mention, of course, that if you have enough money and power and control over the network, you could just make giant botnets to do fake voting, in spite of the fact they say it's totally secure. The other angle that it serves the World Economic Forum agenda is they want an end to legacy media. I know we all hate legacy media, but that's the point. They keep making us hate things. They make us hate banking. They make us hate politicians. They make us hate the major media. And then they go, hey, we've got the techno solution. And I can just picture it as a world with like 1984, where you just have telescreens and they tell you, we're no longer at war with East Asia. We're at war with East Asia. We've never been at war with East Asia. They'll just tell you whatever they want to hear. And then in that way, they can steer your vote. If you literally, because you'd be stuck in a bubble, and that bubble will only get information that they want you to get completely, because by this point, they've destroyed not only major media, but easily censored all small media as well. I believe this is also going to let them argue that we need a revamp or an elimination of traditional policing. I mean, look at what the messaging has been through this whole thing. It's a problem with police. Both sides have had problems with police. But in techno world, in the Great Reset, if you are on the blockchain, like they want you to be, and all your money is digital and also tied to the blockchain, they don't need police or judges or courts because they just will have all your data and there will be no question. Did you just jaywalk? Yep, $20 out of your wallet. Oh, look at all the camera angles we caught you from. We know you stole that. Oh, we know you said this in support of a dissident movement. It just will never end, right? So you don't need police because the all-seeing eye will know whether you're guilty or innocent and they'll keep you in line. Biometric ID, self-driving vehicles, I could go on. So yes, there's lots and lots of ways that it ties into the Great Reset, Fourth Industrial Revolution, all of that. But what I want to say right now is, in spite of all this, remember, I'm just one person. This is just my opinion. I don't really know what's going on down there on the ground. These people and the people from the other sort of groups that are all urging you to go down there, they could be right. Maybe this is a great chance to stand up for democracy. But I just think you can stand up without as much risk by the mask thing, as I say all the time. Just take it off. You know there's millions upon millions of Canadians who support you, okay? Before you make your decision of whether or not to go down to Ottawa, I just want to point you to this interview that was on my friend, quite frankly, Frank's show the other day. This is Brandon Strzok. You might remember him from the Walk Away movement. Well, he ended up going to the January 6th rally in the U.S., you know, the one they now call an insurrection. Well, after he was left there, he never even went in any of the buildings. He was standing outside filming and taking part in what was going on. And he tells a story on Frank's show of what happened to him. And it's not pleasant. I'm not going to tell the story. I'll let you listen to it. All I'm saying is think carefully before you go. And no matter what happens in Ottawa, don't let the spark go out in you. Don't let it demoralize you, because that's the ultimate win for them. When the citizenry is hopeless, every tyrant ever, every villain on every show knows that hope is the most dangerous thing to them keeping control. So keep yours and be dangerous. All right, everybody, thanks very much for listening. If you like this report, please go on over to amazingpolly.net. That's my website. You can send me something through the mail. My address is on the contact page there, as well as a donate button if you want to support my work through a gift online, a digital gift. I thank you for the support you've given me, for the attention you've given me today. Please like, please comment, please subscribe, please share. And until next time, peace out.